So today's video will walk you through the whole process of changing the brake fluid in the car. My friend Shahrukh Bakar, the notorious Shahrukh Bakar, who changed the brake pads earlier. In this video, he will help us change the brake fluid. So we changed the first two at the back, and then the third and the fourth one, and then you will go and we will show you the whole process that you replace it, and then you have to pump it so that the line you can remove all the fluid that is there from the previous oil, and then you replace it with the new one. So the whole bleeding process and the whole pumping process, we will walk you through that. So hope you enjoy this video. Thank you. So today we are actually replacing the brake fluid. So we got to take the tires off first, and then after doing that, then it's far more easier. So we are jacking up the car from the back, and then we're gonna change the back two tires. Placed under. First part of the process. So first part of the process was to jack it up, which we have done. As you can see, it is all jacked up, and now we will remove the brake fluid.
The point of changing the brake fluid is that you want to get rid of all the dirty fluid. So when we open up the car, the first step is to clean everything. There's a lot of dirt everywhere usually. So get rid of any leaves so that nothing falls into the brake master cylinder. You want to clean the cap very thoroughly. Keep this reservoir as clean as possible. So if you take a picture of the fluid, you'll see how dirty it is when we are starting. You can actually see the fluid very easily. It's all dark. But when we are done with it, you'll see that the brake fluid will be very, very clean. So the more you clean right now, the less chance that any dirt can fall in. Once things are fairly clean, then you can pull the cap off. When you pull the cap off, you will see that it'll be very dirty inside. So see all that green? That green color is basically copper corrosion. And that's components of the brake lines and components on the inside which are corroding. So you will see that there's going to be a lot of dirt inside. So as we clean this, you'll see that a lot of dirt will now come out. So first step is to clean the cap. So the cap is clean, we can leave that up here. Next, you'll see that as we pull the fluid off, you can actually remove this carefully just by pulling it up. If it does not come up, you can use a small screwdriver or a pick tool, but usually you can just use the end of your fingernails, and you can see just how dirty the fluid is. So all this greenish corrosion, all those lines are basically corrosion and dirt.
Wow.
So this fluid needs to be changed for sure. So same thing like that, as you clean it, you will see this greenish corrosion is basically, there's a thick layer of corrosion here. So as you take this off, you'll see that this is going to come out in chunks. And that's what it should look like. That's clean. And this is all very, very dirty. So this is going to be a very gratifying fluid change because a lot of dirt is going to come out. So as you go through, clean all this dirt out. You can see the gobs of dirt that are coming out here. Oops. So I'm going to clean this all very carefully. And this is basically a filter, so this prevents any dirt from going in. But there's so much dirt here already that this all needs to be taken care of. As fluid gets older, brake fluid has a couple of properties. Brake fluid is hygroscopic, which means that it absorbs fluid. So over time, brake fluid will have a higher and higher water content. And the water is what leads to all the corrosion on the inside. Used brake fluid also loses some of its anti-corrosion properties, so the chance of corroding goes higher as you let it age. So it's very important to change the brake fluid every about 2 to 3 years, because if you don't do it, then this is what happens. You get all this corrosion building up, and the corrosion also extends on the inside of the brake lines. So now you can see that this is cleaning up very nicely. There's still some dirt on the inside, which we will get. So you can see how much cleaner it is now than when we started. So this is kind of what it should look like at the end. It should be all very clean. Okay. What we're going to do now is we're going to remove the fluid. So So all that dirty fluid, you don't want it going in anymore. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull all of this fluid out, and we're going to leave that here, so that when as we take the brake fluid out, you'll see how dirty it is. This is just a 50cc syringe with a catheter tip. So this, you can basically remove all the fluid that you can from the brake master cylinder. So all of this fluid is going to come out from here. You can see the level drop. Now in the syringe, it doesn't actually look that dirty, but trust me, this is actually very dirty fluid. You will see what new fluid looks like very shortly. But you basically just gently remove the fluid. There are two types of brake fluid that are used in Hondas. Basically, the factory fill is .3. .3 is a specification of the fluid itself. It specifies minimum boiling points, both dry and wet. So a .4 fluid is what we're going to be replacing this with today. I'm assuming this is the original factory fluid, which is .3. And if it is, it's been in there for a long time. So when we change it, you'll see just how clean the fluid will look once we're done with it. So we just basically keep going with this, taking out as much as possible. And we have lots of new fluid left to change this with. That green color that you see is the film of corrosion that's still present. And we're gonna manually clean all of that off. So this is the fluid that we took out. So far you can see how dirty it is.
Yeah.
It's a blue bottle, so it's hard to see, but trust me, this is very dirty. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use a new paper towel. So you don't want any dirt going in here. So as we clean this off, you'll see all the dirt that's coming out, and the filter and the housing will get clean as we go along. So as we clean this off, you'll see that the color of the reservoir is white, and we will get as much as we can by reaching in. You won't get everything, of course, but anything that we can reach, we will get. This is a bit of a complicated reservoir shape, so it's very hard to get everything, but we will simply get as much as we can. At least at the top, that are parts that I can see at least and reach, so I think we've got most of it from here. The rest of it basically will get flushed out as we do the bleeding process. So at least over here, I think we're good.
We're good.
So in terms of brake fluid, Honda originally puts in what's called .3 brake fluid. .3 brake fluid has a lower boiling point, both wet and dry. We are going to put in something called ATE .4. There are various classes of .4 fluid, but the .4 in general has a higher wet and dry boiling point compared to .3. So this is a higher specification of brake fluid. All brake fluids, regardless of .3 or .4 specification, will have corrosion inhibitors, which prevent corrosion like what we saw earlier. But if you leave it in simply too long, it will corrode no matter what fluid it is. So what we're going to do now is we're going to basically fill the brake fluid in. So we are replacing the old used dirty fluid, and we're going to put in new brake fluid, which is now going to make its way through the system as we bleed the system. So this, we're going to basically fill to the top, and you can see that a lot of dirt is coming out. This is dirt that was present underneath, and some of this we can actually pull out right now. So you can see all that greenish swirling. The greenish swirling is basically dirt. So we can selectively pull out little bits of dirt as we go along. So we're going to pull out a little bit of the new fluid to pull out all this greenish swirling, so that that part doesn't go inside, and the rest of it will simply get flushed. So we're going to pull off, as you can see, we're pulling off all the swirling. So at least then we don't have to let this greenish stuff go through the system. So we're going to pull off as much of these swirls as possible. We won't be able to get everything, of course, but we should be able to get most of the green swirls, so that at least we're not putting the same dirty fluid through. So that's pretty good. And this is again now considered dirty fluid. So we're gonna count that as dirty. It's very common when the fluid is this dirty that you will need to do this. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna fill it up again to the top and just repeat the process a couple of times if needed. We're gonna put in new brake fluid. You can see there's a bit more swirl that came out.
So these ones need to be cleaned up.
So we'll do another little clean up here and pull up all the swirl. So at least the big chunks will get out. The small stuff, if it goes through, not a big deal. But at least the big stuff you want to get out if you can. And as you can see, the fluid is already looking cleaner, even with these swirls. So we will take that, and you can see now it's a lot cleaner. This again dirty fluid, which we will leave here. And I think this is pretty good. So I think we'll start. So after cleaning most of the swirling, now what we're going to do is, now that we're reasonably happy with this, we will move to each corner of the vehicle and start the bleeding process. Amount of normal braking that one does, you want to restrict the pedal travel to just that amount, no more. That's very, very important on an older car. On a newer car, not that relevant, because newer cars generally don't have rust inside. But any older car, be very careful with that. Caliper. The brake caliper itself is here. This is the caliper bracket over here. The bleed screw is this over here. So the bleed screw has a little rubber cap. So what you do is you pry off the rubber cap, and that's the bleed nipple. So the bleed nipple on Hondas is a 10mm screw, and especially since this probably hasn't been opened recently, we're going to open it very, very carefully to make sure that we don't damage it. So this is going to be a 10mm, so I'll go and get a 10mm 6-point socket to see if we can just crack it open. Using a 10mm 6-point socket on a 3/8 drive. So this is, because the 6-point socket, you can apply more torque on this, so that it's less likely to strip the bolt if it's really tight. We're going to open up the bleed screw. We're going to hope that it opens up easily. So this is a 10mm socket. These are sort of dirty, so we will gently put the socket on. And there, it's on now. So now we're going to tap it open. And these are very tight. There you go. See? It came loose. So it's very common to just gently wear them back and forth. So when I open a very rusty bleed screw, I will exercise it back and forth while loosening and tightening it sequentially. So now we will move it a little bit more. So I'm moving it, I'm loosening and tightening alternately, because it is going to be very rusty on the inside. So if you do it all in one go, you can break the bleed screw, which obviously you don't want to do. Now you can see that there's brake fluid coming out. So we've opened it. Now that we know it's open, now we're going to attach the bottle and the wrench. So we're going to take off our socket. You can see that now there's brake fluid coming out. And now we're going to attach our, we're going to put a 10mm wrench. Let's put it this way. And then we're going to attach the bleeder pipe into the, and this is a bottle basically which we can hang anywhere. Just leave it here for now. So we'll just put this somewhere here. There we go. Okay, so we're good to go. So now comes the part where you'll have to do the pedal pushing. So what I can do is I can then... Okay, so down. Just keep it down for now. Down. Perfect. And up. Down. That part didn't.
Okay, down.
Yeah.
Down.
Up.
Up.
Down.
Down.
Up. So once the fluid is nice and clean, then we are done with this side. We've tightened up the brake bleed screw, and we can take the tube out. This is what we got out of this wheel. You can see just how dirty it is. So that's not supposed to look like that. This is all very dirty fluid on this side. Let it clean. There's no dirt inside the nipple. Outside there'll always be dirt.
So wheel number 2 is off now. We'll start with wheel number 2.
Screw cap. It's the bleed screw cap. You pull this off, and this is the bleed screw nipple here. So same as before, when there's an old car and you're not sure how tight it's going to be. So we'll basically use a 6-point socket, and to make sure that we don't round off the bleed screw, we'll engage the 6-point socket completely to make sure that we don't strip the bleed nipple. So you can see that that's going all the way to the bottom. So that's fully engaged like that, and then we'll basically just break it loose slowly, gently. Prevent it breaking. There you go. See, if you do it in little jerks like that, it comes off very smooth. This one's actually a little bit, this is a bit freer than the other side, so that's good. And you'll see that fluid will start coming out the bottom here. But this is actually quite free right now, so this is very good. So this one's actually freer than the right rear. So now that we've opened it, now we can switch back to our wrench, and we're ready to go.
Rear
now
to
we can-
wheels are done.
Yeah.
Huh?
Both the rears are done, so now we can move on to the front.
Yeah. Yeah.
The fluid's a lot cleaner now because it's been changed, and you can see that this is what fresh brake fluid looks like.
Nice. Good stuff. And we are just in the process of the last wheel being bled, so we can mash the levels properly.